Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another round of Basis Picks. As always, please like and subscribe if you have a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. I'm not gonna lie, I've been dreading doing this week's picks purely because there is so much boxing on, there is so much good fights. I didn't know which ones I was gonna do, how long I was gonna spend on them, etc. But look, we're here. I'm in a slightly different location than usual, but what I've decided to do, look, we're just gonna do main events and co-mains, but I can't do every card. So yeah, for instance, like the Jani Bet card, I'm not going to do that one. I do expect him to get a knockout victory. I also expect Bakadir Jalalov to get a knockout victory against Igor Shevaduski, which would be interesting, so you guys can have those for free. But yeah, look, without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so the first fight I'm going to look at is Tim Tszyu versus Joey Spencer. Now, Tim Tszyu's coming off the back of two back-to-back defeats, one via split decision and the other one via knockout. The veil that Tim had as an opponent at 154 has kind of gone at the moment, but there's not to say that he can't come back better and bigger and stronger. Joey Spencer is a decent opponent, PBC guy. He's actually okay. Nothing special, but you know, Terrell Gausha gave Tim Tszyu a lot of problems early on in their fight, and Spencer probably is a bit more in the mold of, say, Mendoza, Brian Mendoza, just without the same punching power. So look, I'm not going to give a huge amount of analysis on this one. I think that Tim Tszyu will come back with a victory. It's Amazon Prime card. I do think it's gonna go the distance though. I think Spencer's gonna push him quite a bit. I think Tim's still gonna have a couple of demons that he's battling in this fight, and I think it will play out in points very similar to the Bakrama Dazaliev fight. Every time they kind of got in close near the heads, he kept touching the head, kept rubbing the head, looking for a cut. I think the same kind of scenario is going to be here. He's not going to be as quick to want to engage, and I think he'll do enough to kind of win the majority of the rounds, but I'm predicting a points decision. Okay, look, we gotta go directly over to maybe what we're going to call the medium impact card at this point in time. Look, the card's taken a couple of hits. Yeah, Frank's very first card on his own, but based on the press conference, which I didn't see all of, but I saw enough clips of earlier on, well, yesterday I should say. Now it looks like they're definitely doing their bit to get us interested in this, and I am interested to see how this one plays out. We're going directly to that vacant British heavyweight title fight against David Adeleye and Jamie Shakiva, aka Jamie TKV. Yeah, them two been getting at it from talk sport all the way up to the press conference, flipping tables, loads of security, I'm gonna hurt you, gonna get active. So they're really talking at it from a very different perspective, which I'm cool with. This is almost the second coming of Anthony Joshua and Dillian White when they when they was first coming out, and then to a lesser extent you can maybe say this is a White versus Chisora 1 type scenario. That's kind of how it's feeling. So yeah, look, in terms of how the fight plays out, my thoughts are it's interesting because obviously David knocked out Solomon Dacus in one round. I didn't predict that, but you look at the explosiveness, he's definitely explosive and explosive early. but we also have seen that same explosiveness has got him in trouble, especially the Fabio Wardley fight, when he started sort of gassing from about round 4 onwards. You know, Fabio weathered the storm and then sort of took it over a little bit later on in the fight. Shakiva is a little bit similar in the sense that he's, for a big guy, he actually is quite well conditioned. Maybe not as well conditioned as he could be, but he's able to get on the inside, make things a bit messy, make it dirty, use his wrestling background to sort of get his opponents into certain positions, put his weight on them, lean on them. And I feel staying too far out in the first couple of rounds won't benefit him, because that gives David the opportunities to really sort of fire off and get, you know, sort of get those really fast twitch shots out. So I feel like Jamie's going to try to play a lot of this fight a lot closer. He's not going to try to box from the outside. I feel like he's going to try to box from the inside range, try to get the hold, push David about and try to wear him out that way. Now, one thing I've always mentioned about David hasn't got very big legs, so there's a lot of, you know, he's got a solid torso, but his legs are quite skinny, which means that there's not really a solid base or foundation there. If he gets cracked once in the right place, it will take a long time for his equilibrium to come back. Whereas Shakiva, if you look at his frame, he's a bit more, I guess, in proportion. He's got much more big, stronger, sturdy legs, which means it's going to take more for him to end up off his feet. And I just got a feeling that this fight goes to the later rounds, and then it becomes a case of can David maintain what he's done previously to get through it, or will Jamie come on at the end, wear him down, and try to sort of take it to him and stop him towards the end of the fight? I am going, and I got it horribly wrong the last time I picked a David fight, so I'm trying not to do anything on the disrespectful tip here. I think David's going to be very, very dangerous early on, but I do think when it comes down to it, I think he's going to try too much for those big shots early on, and I think it might backfire on this one. So I think it's going to go the distance, and I think it's going to be a split decision. Being that David is the Queensberry fighter, I think he's going to get it. So I don't think his fight's going to end in a knockout. I think it's going to be very scrappy and messy, especially in the sort of the early to middle rounds. Actually, probably the early rounds might be the cleanest ones. Probably the middle to late rounds, very sort of scrappy, messy, in close, lot of clinching, lot of holding. But I think that David ends up getting it. I think he gets it via split decision. Right, moving on to Hrgović and Joe Joyce, or Joe Joyce versus Hrgović. Look, I am not sure. I think that Hrgović is most definitely the fresher of the two. How will he have taken the loss? Will he have taken it worse than Joe, considering obviously Joe had already experienced a couple of losses before his previous one? Although Joe's loss against Joe Joyce against Derek Chisora was a loss he probably feel like he never should have faced. So you look at that and you think, okay, well, maybe it's not quite there anymore. Look, I've always said Joe is very underrated. He's got slow feet, but he's got a very fast jab. But even though he's got slow feet, he's always able to get into the right position to sort of touch his opponent. And Hrgović has actually got, you know, standard speed all around, but he's a good 1-2 puncher. From the outside, I feel like he'll be able to beat Joe on the 1-2, because he won't just throw the jab like Joe will. He'll throw the jab, he'll throw the backhand, he'll try to move off to the side, try to get that little side angle, throw the right hook as well. I worry for Joe's punch resistance. So I mean, look, he's not riding and rolling the shots the way he used to a few years ago. He is more taking them flush, almost like just covering up. And I think that is where the issue comes in here. I do think that Hrgović gets to him, and I do see a scenario where Hrgović gets a victory. I'm gonna think it possibly goes to points, purely because Hrgović isn't a big tempo guy. He likes to fight at a controlled pace, and I feel like that pace might give Joe Joyce just a little bit of an opportunity to sort of almost recover after each shot. And obviously if they get into the clinches and stuff, you know, Hrgović doesn't really like to have to work out of those kind of things. So I do think that, you know, this would be a very entertaining fight. I think it would be a fight where a lot of punches will be landed by both, but neither guy necessarily has the forward pressure or momentum to put those combinations together. Yeah, but I do think that Hrgović will win the fight. I think it would be close. I think it would be a split decision. Again, I don't think this is going to be clean cut, but I do think that Hrgović will get it, and Joe Joyce will be forced to have gone the distance and lost again by ever so slight margins. Okay, look, last but not least, Top Rank. Now, this is arguably my most anticipated card of the night. I won't go through all the fights, but look, Abdullah Mason's on this card, so you know I'm gonna be tuned in. I'm probably gonna have to VPN to my Sky Sports because this is ESPN Plus in the States, and I don't have an ESPN Plus account. I might have to hit up Ring IQ, see if he can help me out. But yeah, look, Lindolfo Delgado taking on Elvis Rodriguez is a very, very good co-main. I think that's a very, very good co-main. Both guys, you know, top notch. Lindolfo is like, I think he's 22-0, 16 KOs, and Elvis Rodriguez 17 1-1. I think he's like 13 KOs or something like that. So look, I think obviously Lindolfo is the one that they're sort of, I think that's the person that they're sort of really putting their backing behind. Elvis Rodriguez, previous PBC guy actually. So good name, good skills. And if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure Elvis Rodriguez did something with Matchroom at some point. Maybe that didn't work out, but yeah. Anyway, look, without going into too much detail on it, I do think Lindolfo Delgado gets this one. I don't think it's a knockout though. I do think that he will go the distance. I think it would be fairly close on the cards. Talking like 115, 113, maybe even sort of like 116, 112. I could see a scenario where this gets like a majority decision for Lindolfo Delgado, but that's what I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with him to win. On points, it will probably either be like a majority or a unanimous, but it will be a close, fun fight, and it's a fight I'm looking forward to 100%. But the main event is where my interest is. You got everyone, you know, in terms of boxing, I call him my guilty pleasure, Richard Torres Jr. versus Guido Vianello. Now, I've been very harsh and very critical to Guido in the past. I've said that he's not it at all. You know, I remember when he had the fight with Jonathan Rice, and yeah, didn't do great in that fight. I personally didn't think he did well in the FA Jagba fight, but a lot of people seem to feel that he should have got the decision on that one. There's a couple other fights I've seen him looked very sort of basic, so I said, okay, well, I don't really see his career going too far. And he was someone that Tyson Fury kind of lauded a few years back, so maybe that's why I probably thought I was judging him on a higher scale than others based as a contender. But he impressed me immensely in the fight against Makhmudov, Arslanbek Makhmudov, just because I didn't expect him to employ the type of game plan that he did, you know, to the point where he just beat the brakes off of Makhmudov from the second round all the way up to when the fight eventually got stopped. I think it got stopped on cuts. So he's been stopped on cuts before. He's never actually been knocked out, so even though he does have like a knockout loss on his record, it was due to cuts in the Johnny Rice fight. So he's a very tough guy, very athletic, you know, former sort of tennis player. His family is tennis background, so he's got that kind of athleticism, very good footwork, very good speed, explosivity. But his, you know, I mean, the ring IQ, the boxing IQ, the punch selection in general is sort of very predictable. You can kind of pick it up after sort of a round or two. You can kind of see what he's aiming to do. So that's kind of where he sits in that sense. Now, when it comes to Richard, look, a 6'2" southpaw pressure fighter, just squat guy, able to get himself on the inside. He's very obviously, not in terms of his skills and how he gets in, but it's reminiscent a little bit of how Mike Tyson, as a you know, a smaller heavyweight in height, would have to sort of get in, move underneath the person's punches, spring up, get on the inside, a little bit like, yeah, between sort of the Mike Tyson and the Alexander Povetkin in the way that he sort of goes about like lunging and looping into those shots. Now, it is possible, obviously, you can, if you catch him coming in, that's possibly where you have the success. That's what Bakadir Jalilov did in the Olympics and ended up sort of stopping him. Didn't knock him out as such, but he stopped him, got him, you know, he had to take several counts in that fight. And it's that type of defense that you have to employ. You have to sort of catch him as he's coming in and then be able to use that to push him back. But if you can't push him back and he stays on the front foot and stays with his pace and his pressure, it's very, very hard to live with him. Now, 12-0, this is his 13th fight. They believe that he is ready for this step up, and it is a step up compared to a lot of the other opposition that he's fought, but I think it's a step that is just right for him. I actually think personally you could step him up slightly beyond Guido, but obviously in-house fight makes sense, probably get to pay them a little less money, all that good stuff. I think he wins. I think Torres basically dominates the first half of the fight. I think Guido has some successes in the second half, makes it a little uncomfortable maybe in a few moments, but nothing major. But I do think he will win quite a few rounds, and maybe even a couple more rounds than some people expect. Torres will get pushed in this one. It will force him obviously to go the distance, I think, for the first time in his career. Like when I say the distance, I'm talking about, you know, from 10 rounds onwards. Like 6 rounders, you can go the distance in a 4 and a 6 rounder. That's not really an issue. But when you get in distance in like an 8 or a 10 or a 12, that's a different level of conditioning. And I feel like him going the distance will be just that extra that he needs on top for people to know that he's ready to sort of take on those other challenges. So I am predicting Richard Torres Jr. to win, but I actually think we might get a little bit of controversy and it might be a split decision. So that's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for Richard Torres to win that fight via split decision against Guido Vianello in a very fun fight. I do think it will be a fun fight, and I cannot wait for that fight to take place on Saturday night. With that being said, thank you guys for watching. apologies, there hasn't been a lot of content this week. Yeah, I'm gonna try and see if I can do some stuff, stockpile, so I can pull it out throughout the days. We'll see where we get to, but for right now, don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and I appreciate you all. But for right now, Spaces Picks, locked.